welcome to episode 140 of Overdose and Chill. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Simon, our Head of SaaS Delivery at Overdose. Today, I'm joined by our guest, Eli, the agency partner for Shopify. Welcome, Eli.
Thanks for having me on.
We are broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Obviously, if anyone has any questions throughout the session, please feel free to drop them in the comments, and we're happy to jump in and answer them throughout the session. But let's get into it. I guess the topic of conversation for today, Eli, is we want to sort of unpack all of the latest announcements from Shopify editions, and there's obviously quite a bit to unpack as well. So I guess in terms of some of the biggest announcements that we've sort of had come through, some of the native bundles, B2B, some improvements to checkout, and a whole bunch more that we'll try and cover today. But for those merchants that might be joining us today, feel free. We'd love to hear questions. We want to try and make this as constructive as possible for you. That's what we're here for. But I guess to start off the conversation, I'm sort of keen to hear your thoughts, Eli, on what you think or what's got you most excited from this latest round of Shopify editions.
Yeah, honestly, like you said there, Simon, it's there's a lot to unpack. We're probably not going to get through it all today, but picking a favorite one, that's tough. That's like picking a favorite child almost. Not that I have kids, but that's what I imagine it would be like. A lot comes to mind. So I reckon there's probably, the way I think about it is like short term, what's really important, like midterm, what is really exciting as well. And then like the long-term piece as well. So I reckon short term, the big ones have got to be like the admin updates and I guess the quality of life changes that have been made right away in the admin. You can see that live right now. And the other piece is the one-page checkout. I feel like short term, that's going to be a big game changer for a lot of merchants. We already know how good the checkout is on Shopify, but to make that even like less friction points, I think is huge. So short term, I reckon it's the admin and one-page checkout pieces. Midterm, I reckon it's no doubt bundles and subscriptions. It's what we've been asked about for so long, and we finally have it. It's here. And then long term, I reckon B2B has got to be the big winner out of all of this. So yeah, they're my 4-5 favorites right now, but that could change. Ask me tomorrow, it's probably changed again.
Yeah, absolutely. As you get stuck into more and more things, your opinion can definitely change. I think the one-page checkout's definitely a really interesting one, and as you said, it definitely will have one of the biggest improvements for a merchant in that short term, because as you said, we know how great the Shopify checkout is and how well it does perform. It's proven to be one of, if not the best checkout there is out there in the market. And the fact that we've made that, or Shopify's made that even simpler for customers to check out, I think that's just such an easy win for merchants to make that change, get over to that one-page checkout, and hopefully see their conversion rate improve a little bit further as well. I'm curious to know, have you sort of got much experience or information on merchants that have moved over to that one-page checkout in terms of what they've seen from an uplift or how simple it's been to move them over to that?
Yeah, not just yet. I feel like because it is so new, I've seen the some of the demo pages and heard a lot about merchants that are planning the migration over. What I'm really excited about is all of that checkout extensibility work that's been put in now can translate over. So you've kind of got that existing 3-page checkout. And as we move to one page, all of that functionality through checkout extensibility is now going to be housed and can be housed easily on that one page. And that's what I'm really excited about. And I think a lot of other brands, but also agencies and partners that we work with are really excited to see that change, because you think about the flexibility that we've started to offer now through checkout extensibility. And what that then means when it's on a single page is going to be huge. I think we're really excited to see how that increases conversion rates straight off the bat no doubt you'll be hearing me scream from the rooftops about it when it does become commonplace in market, because I think we're just going to see that conversion rate, just that percentage boom straight off the bat. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. I think the checkout extensibility piece is really an interesting one, because for us as an agency and developers in general, like what's been done there is actually really exciting for us, because we can see just how much opportunity there is and what there is going to be coming out in the market for things that we can easily plug into the checkout and really enhance that experience. It might not be as obvious straight off the bat to merchants as to just how powerful that's going to be, but yeah, we're super excited to get into that and sort of really unlock all of the full potential of what can be done.
Yeah, I think I always say as well, like if the developers are getting excited about it, it must be good. There's not a lot of times that, throughout, talking to a lot of developers, they get really excited, but when they do, you listen up because it's going to be important. So checkout extensibility is certainly one of those pieces. You can just see this kind of glint in their eye when they start speaking about it. So it's going to be really exciting. There's going to be a lot of ways that brands can have ownership over that checkout experience now. And I think that's a really welcome change for a lot of brands that are thinking about Shopify, but already on Shopify as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've sort of dabbled a little bit with the new checkout as well. And some of the, I guess, limitations that we ran into early days was around a lot of the merchants wanting to have like address validations via third parties, and that wasn't necessarily available off the bat. I know with this new additions that there is APIs opening up for that. So I think, yeah, you're going to see quite a rush of people wanting to get over to that new checkout to really unlock that full experience.
Yeah, for sure.
I think another thing that, as you sort of touched on at the start there, probably one of the most anticipated things that many merchants and agencies have been asking for a while from Shopify is that native bundles piece. I know it's been sort of talked about for quite a while, and it hasn't really been a perfect solution from like a third-party app or even like a custom solution that really fits the needs for merchants. And I think now that Shopify are really pushing into this space with building this native bundles app, I think that's really exciting. And I know it's got a few limitations as it's sort of, I guess, more of an MVP at this stage, but I expect that will sort of grow over time. And just the ease and nature of how quickly and simply you can set up bundles as a merchant is really powerful. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for merchants to really dig into that.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's an acknowledgement on how foundational and important bundling and even subscriptions as well, we'll go into that a bit later, is to the commerce experience and to brands and how they grow, right? We know how important it is to growing AOV, and therefore we want the merchants that are on our platform to have access to that. So like you said, it is kind of version 1 release, which means it is super early days. But the good thing there is that we know that Shopify is doubling down in that place now. And there's going to be, more and more focus and improvements on that space as we move forward. So super exciting. We've been, I'm sure you've been asked about it a ton of times, for many, many years, as have we. And the fact that it's finally here is just is unreal.
Absolutely. And we've got a question through here from Sarah. Just going back to the checkout side of things. So is the checkout extensibility only for Shopify Plus merchants, or is it for all Shopify sellers? So I think that's a really good question. And I guess it is available for all merchants. I guess there's some parts of it that in terms of some of the APIs that we might need to be with Shopify Plus merchants to be able to utilize some of those. But generally speaking, yes, it would be available to all merchants. So yeah, something that anyone on Shopify can utilize.
For sure. I feel like it's the gold standard now for Shopify is that checkout extensibility piece and our essentially the new version of the checkout because of how much functionality is now being added to that piece. And I think what we'll see over time is the rest of the Shopify ecosystem is starting to move in that way. So app developers, agency partners and technology partners are all building around that extensibility piece now, which is super exciting because all the Shopify merchants now get access to that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're starting to see as well a number of app providers building apps with Shopify functions and launching them on the app store. And I think Shopify, from what I've seen, are promoting those a little bit that are using functions because of the more robust nature of what's being built there. So yeah, I guess having more reliable third-party apps that merchants can look to utilize is going to be really exciting to unlock that as well.
For sure.
I guess going back to what we're talking about as well with the bundles, I guess for those that might not know, I am keen to sort of touch on the limitations of it a little bit in its current state, and that's not to steer people away from it, but at the moment there is a bit of a limitation around the fact that you can only have up to 100 combinations within a bundle, which for some merchants that might be an issue right now. There are obviously ways around that with some of the customization that we can do to it. But I think what's great about the approach that Shopify is taking to this is let's get it out in market and see how it goes, see where merchants want to take it, and we can sort of shift and pivot the app to support those needs. So I think for merchants that are dabbling in the idea of, I'm keen to try out bundles, I don't have a perfect idea of what I want to do, the Shopify native bundle app's a great starting point because you can set it up, it's free, you can easily set it up yourself without any development customization, and really just get to market with some bundle products and see if your customers have an interest in those, and then look to customize the offering from there, really.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like if you've got kind of a preset bundle in mind, that is perfect for the native bundles app for you to get started and use that. If you've got a little bit more complex bundling, so let's say mix and match and whatnot, then the next kind of gradual steps are looking at the bundle API and the apps that are available as well. But just touching on the variation limit, I think it's a natural, like naturally your variations are going limit, or your number of variations is going to increase based on the number of bundles you offer. So, for the very keen-eyed, if you were on the Shopify Editions website and you've watched the walkthrough with Glenn Coates, there is a little a tidbit there where it shows that we're actually going to start increasing that variation limit. What that number actually is, it's no word on that just yet, but all we know is that it is increasing, which I think a lot of people are really excited about. As you mentioned, Simon, there was some workarounds in the past there, but naturally, if we're bringing more bundling tooling onto the platform, we're going to need more variations as well.
Definitely. And we've got another question come through here. So can merchants do A/B tests on bundles? It's an interesting question. I guess not something that you could natively set up within the app itself, but something that you could definitely look to split test yourself by perhaps setting up multiple different bundles and directing traffic to different bundles to see how they work. I guess there's probably some creative ways that you could test that out. I don't know, Eli, if you've had any sort of exposure to anything like that so far?
No, but that is a solid question. I might take that back to the team and see what they think the best workaround is there. Nothing straight out of the box that comes to mind for me, but let me do some more digging there and see what we can suggest in that area.
Cool. We got another question. We got a question here from Marty. So is there any news about native subscriptions? It was an exciting announcement and everyone is keen to know when and what toy looks like. I'm going to assume that's a spelling mistake.
But what the new shiny toy looks like, I'm assuming that's what he means. So yeah, I think on the subscription piece, obviously early access sign up is available. We're working through that list as we speak. What I think is we're going to start to see that in more general availability towards the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled. It will launch at some point. That's pretty vague, but that's as far as I know what is planned.
And for those merchants that might be sort of keen to sort of have a dabble in it early, is there a way in which people can apply for early access?
100%. Head to the editions page, search for the subscription article within that page, and you can sign up for early access right there.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. I think there's the next topic. I'm sort of keen to touch on B2B. I know Shopify has been spending a lot of time in evolving their B2B offering. The B2B functionality has been out for a little while now, but I think with this edition, there's a number of improvements to it in terms of some of the APIs that have been released, which are exciting from a developer point of view. I think as well, things like your vaulted credit cards, your tiered or volume-based pricing for B2B as well, I think is something that'll bring a lot of value to merchants as well. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on other areas of the B2B side of things that you're sort of seeing in the market is really providing a lot of value.
Yeah, look, this has been a huge topic. I feel like a lot of the B2B market was really relieved when we actually launched B2B. I think it was last edition, so not that long ago, like 6 to 12 months ago. So it's still relatively recent, but the reason why those B2B brands were so excited is that they've now got an opportunity to house their experience, their commerce experience on Shopify, which they hadn't had in the past. And I think they'd seen a lot of success with how well the D2C brands were doing on there. And now they've got an opportunity to move their B2B business on there. I think the sentiment around how quickly the product has moved has been really positive as well. There's a huge amount of R&D that's going into developing that product. And I always say it's probably one of the quickest arms of the product that I can see is that the B2B piece. So a lot of excitement around it. I feel like out of these latest updates, definitely the volume pricing pieces and having greater control over managing those customer profiles is a big one. I think the contextual publishing, which I think we might touch on a little bit later, is also a massive one. But all in all, I think the way that businesses conduct their B2B and B2C offering is really like evolving. I think we've started to see more of that blended model come into the fold as opposed to keeping the two channels completely separate, which poses some really interesting use cases and I guess customer journeys that you can start to play with there. So yeah, lots of excitement around B2B. I can't remember. What was the actual question?
That was the question. What was most exciting from B2B? So yeah, I think you've covered it off perfectly there. There's a lot of improvements that are coming to an end. The fact that Shopify are constantly evolving that, they can obviously see how valuable that is for merchants as well. So it's a really exciting piece. I think as well, just how easy it is to set up within the admin is such an underrated thing. And something that I love about Shopify is that anything that they build natively into the platform, whether it was in the platform itself or with an app, just how simple it is for merchants to use, right? So historically, and going back to things like bundles and even B2B as well, obviously in the past, that sort of stuff has been possible, but the way it had to be achieved resulted in a quite, I guess, complicated infrastructure for merchants or internal people to manage. So now with the B2B, you can go in, you set your catalog, you set price lists. I just touched on as well the contextual publishing. I think that sort of really slipped through the radar. I think in this editions, I know from my experience, that's probably the number one question we get particularly with the market side of things as well is, okay, yes, I can set up market-based pricing within Shopify, but what if I want to promote different content on the AU store versus the US because it's a different season and we've got different things to promote? Now the fact that you can do that with the contextual publishing, that's massive, I think, for merchants. And I think it's probably something that hasn't really been receiving as much as attention as it really should.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was so pleased to see that roll out, and I think it has definitely gone under the radar. But as I think agencies and brands start to cotton on that it is a game changer in terms of serving your customers with uh, the right content and the right products at the right time, that's going to, I guess, start to snowball. Because it is such a good experience when you can provide that contextual piece over the top of a great website. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I think as well on that content piece as well, the other thing, and probably from my side, the thing that had me most excited from this, and I know we talked about it the other week a little bit, was around the meta objects. I see that as a massive, massive change for the way that I guess Shopify CMS works and how merchants can manage data and content within the admin rather than having to always go into the theme customizer and update theme within there and create new templates. The fact you can now set up meta objects within the admin, have them active or draft and publish them when you need and have them hooked up dynamically into your templates, that stuff, that probably got me the most excited. And I'm keen to see just how much value we can get out of that, because I see the opportunity for that is quite limitless with what we can do. And it really changes the whole infrastructure of how you can manage a Shopify theme in terms of content and assets and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Like this is another one of those topics where the devs get excited, and it's important because you're going to kind of unlock new ways of working, and things like scalability and operations becomes really important because you can leverage so much of the meta objects piece to do a lot of that grunt work. So yeah, in terms of being scalable, contextual, and you don't have to do hacky workarounds to manage content anymore. Like that is a big part of why we rolled out meta objects. So think of things like, if you're managing a whole heap of pages that, look and feel the same, whether it's like a location page, a lookbook, team profiles, kind of you name it, there's a lot of use cases for meta objects. So I'm excited again to see how the partners bend and twist that to become a really powerful way of building pages. Not to mention that it's really powerful when it comes to your organic visibility and the relevant pages that you're serving up on different search engines. It's going to be a big game changer for that as well.
Absolutely. And I think as well with this editions, there was the release of meta object templates, which was an interesting piece as well, where you can basically set up a new meta object based template, have it with a different, I guess, page slug as well, which I thought was quite an interesting change that I wasn't really expecting Shopify to be releasing anytime soon, where you could set up something like a, let's say, ingredients page and have the actual ingredients slug within the page URL, and then generate all of your specific, like ingredient specific pages via meta objects. So you don't always have to go in and create a new template for every single one. You can just have one template, connect it with a dynamic meta object, and sort of create pages on the fly, really.
Yeah, 100%. Again, like it's that less cumbersome way of kind of building new pages into sites and creating, I guess, additional pages that reference, certain products and ingredients and pieces that you want to, I guess, build upon. So again, I cannot wait to see what rolls out from this, and I'll be looking at you, Simon, to build some pretty cool things around that. So
yeah,
look forward to it.
Keen to get stuck into it. The one thing Martin and I have sort of already dabbled a little bit with it is around some of the like size chart pages. That was sort of the immediate use case that we came up with. That's like, just do this as a meta object. It makes it a lot easier for a merchant to manage as a meta object rather than like page with meta fields and having to manage a bunch of different things. Just one simple place, nice and simple for merchants to manage.
Yeah.
As well, I think the other thing I can really see the meta objects piece sort of forming into, I guess, the hydrogen side of things as well, and being able to utilize meta objects to sort of populate content for hydrogen build as well. I think there's I guess, a natural progression there, that could be a way to sort of set up your tech stack without a third-party CMS, depending on how simple or complex your, I guess, content requirements are.
100%. That's kind of the sentiment that I got with a lot of these announcements as well, is that they're starting points that are going to lead into much, more exciting areas of, building a commerce website and being able to manage it effectively. So I think a lot of these are starting threads for what's to come as well. So it's definitely like a watch this space, but don't wait too long, because you'll be wanting to adopt those as soon as possible, because it is eventually going to become best practice, right? There's a lot of things to be excited about from this edition for sure.
Absolutely. The other thing which was a big part of the announcement, and it was actually one of like the lead announcements within the editions, was around the AI piece. I'm personally yet to dig too much into it and sort of uncover where I think that's going to bring the most value. But obviously AI is a hot topic of conversation at the moment. And of course, Shopify was going to get into that space as well. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts on where you think the value might come from that AI piece, and sort of where merchants can look to utilize that.
Yeah, for sure. We were never going to, talk about editions and not talk about AI. I just think with the nature of the market, but more so like the impact that it can make in the commerce space, I think is one of the most underrated pieces about AI and the impact that it can have. You think about managing an online store right now, there's a lot of pieces to managing that I think merchants can benefit from using, like an AI sidekick to do a lot of that grunt work. So, effectively right now you've got Sidekick and you've got Magic. Sidekick being that AI assistant, Magic being essentially a tool that you can use to, populate, product descriptions and titles and whatnot. So right now, I think what Sidekick is, can do is a lot of the help in referencing like help documents and support. It can do some basic functionality around creating discount codes and whatnot. I think long term, and this is probably more of just a crazy Friday thought experiment on my behalf, is like long term, I think when I think about AI, it's like, how do we assist those brands that are looking for a low code or no code solution, where they're wanting to make adjustments to their page or their website overall, and they want to jump in and easily do that. I think AI has a pathway there. And I think potentially some of the announcements around sections will eventually assist in doing that. Is like, okay, I want my page and look and feel to look like this, and this to sit over here, and AI will be able to do that without you having to touch a single line of code. I think that's where my head is going when I get asked about, hey, how is AI going to impact this? But right now, you think about the complexity of running an online store, how many different apps you use, the day-to-day management of that. I think a lot of that grunt work is going to be nullified through the adoption of AI, which is, I think, music to a lot of brand owners' ears, because they can spend less time on the management piece and more time innovating for their own customers and brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it seems to be I guess a mindset that Shopify take with anything that you do, is trying to make things easier for merchants. And as well, I guess, making it easier for agencies and developers as well, taking away the time kill of having to do mundane, repetitive tasks that you can look to utilize AI for, and really saving that time to really help bring the brand to life, whether that is through marketing or whatever, or from a development perspective, focusing on really cool, exciting, building out new features like that, that can bring a lot more value. And I think that's probably the way it's going to evolve over time with AI. We can all speculate as to what it may look like, but and it will no doubt evolve over time, and it'd be interesting to see where exactly that all goes.
For sure.
Cool. I think Next thing I wanted to sort of pick your brain on, obviously from our side, I've got sort of a fairly good idea of a lot of the sort of pain points and questions that we get from merchants over the years, which, to be quite honest with you, a lot of what's come out of this editions is addressing a lot of those pain points. But I'm curious to know if there's other things that you're hearing in the broader market from agencies or merchants that Shopify is not yet released, but is perhaps working on or looking at to do in the future.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's always areas to improve, and we've got our finger on the pulse of that, both through our merchants and partners. I think, like you said, the good news is that a lot of those, the feedback that we've gotten so far from this latest editions is addressing a lot of that, particularly around the flexibility piece around the platform and having more chances to customize. And that's exactly what we want to hear, right? I feel like the additional areas that I'm seeing as a focus point right now are things like B2B and checkout customization, which I know is getting a lot of love right now, but I think we've still got some long ways to go in terms of where we think we can get it, and we're really bullish on the fact that we will get there. I think there's so much focus right now on those areas that I'm excited to see where that heads in the future. The other thing that pops into my mind is like the complexities of running, a business that has multi-channel, capabilities, and looking at things like, multi-channel fulfillment. If you've got multiple fulfillment centers, retail locations thrown into the mix, and managing that complexity, I think, is another area that we're really keen to help solve. So that's where a lot of the interesting conversations are happening right now. Custom storefronts, things like headless, and additional channels that you can open up as a storefront is also really front of mind right now. So that's probably the next chapter, I think, is like starting to reduce the complexity in that space, and particularly in the enterprise world as well. But I'm just glad that, off the back of this additions, it seems like we're hitting the right chords based on the feedback we're receiving, both from the merchants and the partners that are building on the platform. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, definitely. And you definitely hit the nail on the head with one of those points you made there around the multiple, I guess, fulfillment centers and being able to have different integrations for like different markets or B2B, for example.
Yeah.
I think that's really hopefully the next frontier of where that evolves to, because it can definitely be a sticking point for merchants looking to go with that single store front with multiple markets and B2B in that single instance. But I think unlocking that's probably, at least from my perspective, is that probably one of the last hurdles to really opening it up to pretty much everyone, I think, for making that viable. I think even now we're seeing quite a lot of businesses go down that front of, historically they might have had multiple regional stores, and we've got a lot of merchants that are still like this. We've got an AU store, an NZ store, US, and not only is that difficult to manage from an internal perspective for the e-com manager that's having to populate assets on all of these different sites, becomes more time intensive for agency or a developer to manage that as well. So I think we're really starting to see a shift from multiple stores to try and consolidate into that one store. And I think the release of markets late last year or maybe the year before has allowed a lot more merchants to do that. The release of B2B again has allowed merchants to do that, where previously I know we had the wholesale channel, but now having that natively within the single instance, the fact that you can run multi-region B2B all within the single storefront just makes things a lot more simpler for merchants.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that's a very topical conversation like we're having with a lot of brands right now, is that conversation around, business operations and total cost of ownership and what it takes to manage multiple storefronts. And I think that is very much so on the forefront of our minds. And, we've got an opinion that markets is a fantastic use case for being able to get ahead of that and manage multiple regions in an easy way. And I think that's only going to get better and better. Obviously, there's the multiple storefronts as well that you can leverage through a headless piece or expansion stores. So there's a couple of options there, but I think there's definitely some ways to go. Probably more so on the fulfillment and making it easier for brands to manage that type of complexity. We saw some starting points of that. So things like order routing announcements. Again, like these are starting threads, which are really exciting, but they're the starting point. So I think there's, I'm really excited to see how that kind of evolves, because we could be talking about these things next editions, but they've got a completely new kind of evolution to them. So it'll be interesting to see when we do this again in 6 months time, how far it's come again, because I think if you look back, if having just launched B2B in the last one, how far that's come now is really exciting. You can see the momentum there around the product. So I expect 6 months time, it'll be an interesting conversation for us.
Definitely. I remember when it first came out, the B2B side of things, we had a project not soon long after that where we sort of dove into B2B for the first time. And you run, as naturally with anything, you do run into a few limitations with things, but those limitations that we ran into 6 months ago no longer exist now. And hopefully the limitations we're running into now don't exist in 6 months time as well.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's great. I think B2B in particular, probably 80% of the conversations I'm having at least has some level of kind of B2B involved, which is really exciting. It's some brands that have never even considered B2B before and are branching into that, or it's vice versa, where they've come from the B2B landscape and they're wanting to crack that business to consumer market and bring over the rest of the B2B operations as well. So, it goes either side, but it shows there's a lot to cater for when it comes to the Shopify platforms now, which is good.
Absolutely. The other exciting thing, I guess, in a similar vein is the marketplaces piece that came out in editions as well. I know that's quite, there's I think maybe 4 or 5 marketplaces that it can connect to natively now.
Yep.
And I obviously expect that that's going to grow over time, but off the bat, we've got, I think it's eBay, maybe Amazon,
Walmart, and I'm missing one.
I think it's a US-based one, but
and you're right. I think we'll start to see a few more of those marketplace channels open up based on the different local use cases, for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, it just on that Marketplace Connect app, it's pretty powerful. Like you can publish and manage all of your product listings on those different marketplaces through your Shopify admin. It's actually a really clean experience to be able to go, okay, let's populate the product list that we want to show on Amazon. Let's control the look and feel and the product imagery and titles and whatnot, and then hit publish button. And boom, it's live on Amazon. So it's pretty incredible. And we obviously, we appreciate how many brands do sell through marketplaces. So to be able to create a channel where brands can easily manage that all through their admin, I think that's a game changer for those that do really rely on some of those marketplace channels, but also for those that want to test and learn different avenues and different channels as well. You can kind of fire that up and give it a go as soon as you like.
Absolutely. And yeah, for those that have tried integrating with marketplaces, you'll no doubt know about all of the different data requirements and that sort of thing that can often make any integration between an e-com platform and a marketplace quite data intensive in terms of everything you need to manage with different titles and different descriptions and bullet points and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that we've got this native marketplace integration now is going to make everyone's lives a lot easier. And we've got a question through here from Raven. So prediction, most underutilized tool or the forgotten golden key? It's a good one. What do you reckon, Eli? You got anything off the bat there?
There's some things we haven't even spoken about, which is wild. In addition, so things like underutilized tool. For me, it would be Shopify Collective. So long story
Mhm.
short, with that one is you can now partner with other brands that are on Shopify to sell your product. So let's say, for example, I'm a sock brand and I want to reach new customers and new audiences. I can now sell my product or list my product um, through other Shopify sites. So let's say that there's a Shopify merchant out there that sells shoes and they don't want to necessarily go into the sock making business, but they want to pair their product with some socks. I can now partner up with those brands and connect directly through my admin to sell those products. So I think given the scale of Shopify's kind of ecosystem, with millions of merchants on the platform, think about those new opportunities to find new customers and new audiences, and get sales at the same time, right? So I reckon that is probably going to be a bit of an underrated or golden key, for that matter, that unlocks a lot of new sales for brands that are looking for that type of partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess from my perspective as well, I'll probably be sounding like a bit of a broken record, but I'm definitely all in on the meta objects. It's just something that people aren't utilizing enough for what it can do. So yeah, I think that is an area where people will begin to uncover just how powerful that is, and we'll really see that, I guess, become the norm of how you manage your data and your content within the Shopify admin.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be a massive one. The final one there would be like, is probably a no brainer, but subscriptions. Like we
Mm,
know that every e-commerce or retail business is thinking about the way that they can tap into driving more monthly recurring revenue, or returning customers. And I think that subscription piece is not to be underrated. It is obviously the version 1 right now, but the fact that it is available now to merchants is super exciting. So I think that's also going to be one of those golden keys. If you can crack the subscription game, that's going to be huge.
definitely. The other thing that we haven't really touched on at all yet, and there's a few pieces around it from Editions. They weren't major announcements, but I know that it's a key focus for Shopify at the moment is around the Shopify POS. I know we've started to work with a few merchants that are getting over to Shopify POS and really seeing how easy that makes creating an omni-channel experience. I know from a development point of view that trying to do omni-channel gift cards and omni-channel loyalty is often one of the most complicated and time-consuming pieces for any sort of web build. But when you can utilize Shopify POS, you obviously can unlock that all natively, given that the data flows between your Shopify store and your POS. But I guess, yeah, keen to hear your thoughts on some of the improvements and some of the updates that have come through from Shopify POS and what that sort of has unlocked for some merchants.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, if you ask me probably now what my favorite part of Shopify is, I would easily say point of sale. I just think that experience is incredible. And coming from a marketing background, I know how important it is to be able to kind of capture that in-store data and then leverage it across other channels. And you mentioned it just there, Simon, is to be able to create that single customer view is super, super powerful, for brands that both have an online and in-store presence, and want to kind of use that data effectively over multiple channels. Cannot speak highly enough of our point of sale system right now, but it is only going to get better. So Shopify, the POS Go offering and the product is soon coming to market. I promise. That's the all-in-one, card reader, barcode scanner, all-in-one kind of device that you can use to freely move around. Maybe it's a retail store and meet your customers where they are in the store, and enable them to purchase. So keep your eyes peeled for POS Go, coming very, very soon. Other pieces to that as well that I think kind of go under the radar, are things like the POS UI extensions. So for partners and apps that want to build into Shopify point of sale, Say for example, you've got a certain business operation or thing that your in-store assistants want to be able to do quickly and easily through the point of sale system. You can now build that through an app that plugs into Shopify point of sale systems. So things like right now that we're seeing, things like wish list apps and other kind of loyalty systems that you can easily kind of use an app around Shopify point of sale on. I think we're going to see that start to explode as people build more custom UI extensions for their different use cases for retail. So that's just a snippet of kind of what's been announced, but definitely go back and check out what's happening in that space. There's a ton of resources there on the additions page around point of sale and what it means. So go check that out.
Yeah, I'd just add on to that as well, just a shout out to how great that additions page actually is. I think we were talking about this as well the other week, is that it's so easy to consume all of the content that's been provided via Shopify with this additions update. The little short snippet videos, really easy to get in there and understand what it's all about, rather than having to sit through a couple hour long video in one hit where you're sort of zoning in and out of what's going on. So for those that are on this session and haven't checked out that page, definitely suggest you do so, because we're really only scratching the surface here, and there's just so much in there for people to dig their teeth into if they want to.
For sure. And the cool tidbit about that is that it's all built on Shopify as well. So it's running on top of the Shopify platform, which is pretty incredible when you see how much is going on that site and how it performs. It's a pretty cool experience. I always suggest grab a coffee, a tea, maybe a beer at this time of the afternoon, and get stuck into it for an hour or so. You're definitely not going to hit everything, but it's worth a viewing. And if you're a bit more developer technology inclined, there's a really handy filter down the bottom that you can filter from a developer view, and it'll take out kind of a lot of the wider announcements and focus purely on the big announcements for developers, which is really, really handy for a lot of our partners to check out as well. So do check the site out. I know that there was a little bit of a scavenger hunt within the code of the site where we were giving away some free merch. So I think people were trying to tap into the HTML or something and figure out what the little bounty hunt was going, and I don't know who got merch. Simon, did you happen to get any merch from that?
I did not, no, unfortunately.
Well, it launched in North America, so you might have been asleep at that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, but I definitely recommend anyone go check that out if you haven't. I know Marty and I did a little session on the Friday, the day following the additions announcement, and tried to unpack everything that had came out within the last 24 hours. And the fact that we had all of those sort of short little content snippets that we could read through made it a lot easier to digest and really figure out where the best value was for what had been announced.
Yeah, my favorite part's the walkthrough, I reckon. Just having Glenn Coates, our VP of product, kind of break it down. I definitely needed in layman's terms. So that, it's a 25-minute video, and it's super digestible, as you said. So if you've only got about half an hour, watch that video, because it's a pretty good roundup of a lot of things that did launch.
Definitely. Now we've got about 10 minutes left for this session. So if there's anyone on the session that has any specific questions or broad questions, feel free to drop them in. We'd love to try and address some of those. If there are any burning questions, now's a really great opportunity to ask those, and we can sort of dive into them and get stuck into any burning questions that you've got. But I guess while we wait to see if we get any other questions through, the other thing that we haven't really talked about at all is the Shopify credit. Now, I personally haven't really dove into this too much yet. So I'm sort of keen to learn actually a little bit more around what that is exactly and what value that can bring.
Yeah, so credit plays a strong part in what our vision for the Shop app will become. So I'm sure a lot of people are already familiar with the Shop app. Previously it was used to kind of track orders and that sort of thing. Now it is a complete shopping experience. Like you can find your favorite brands, the ones that you've purchased from before. You can also discover new brands on there. It's a place for brand discovery, really. One of my favorite uses of that app is actually it's got a bit of an AI assistant built into it as well. So if you're like me and you suck at buying people gifts, you can actually use that AI assistant to help you buy gifts. So for me, it would be, hey, my brother's 30th is coming up. I've got $50 I want to spend on him. He likes going fly fishing, and he likes going to cold places. Then the AI assistant will suggest products that are a good fit for him. Maybe it's a pair of waders, maybe it's a fly fishing rod, whatever that matches the budget that you have to spend. So if you're anything like me, go check that app out because it's super handy. But credit can live inside there. So essentially, it's a way for brands to have greater control over, I guess, the value that they're giving back to their customers. So whether it's buying a certain amount of products, they receive credit back that they can spend on other Shopify merchants or themselves. There's a lot of different use cases for credit, and I think long term we'll start to see that adoption a bit more widespread as the Shop app continues to grow. I know it's usually up there with within the top 3 apps within Australia and New Zealand on iPhone. I assume Android as well. So we know how popular the app is. It's growing at a massive amount as people realize that there's more to do on that app and more brands to discover. So credit lands very well into the arms of giving merchants greater control over their customers' buying experience.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's really interesting and something to look at because much like you are not a great gift purchaser, so look to utilize that as well. And guess in terms of I'm trying to think if there's anything else from this editions that we haven't really talked about yet. Is there anything from your side that you wanted to touch on and give a little bit of a spiel about?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a lot of different kind of smaller announcements that all play into the bigger part. I think the quality of life stuff and the changes to the admin, I think, are one of my favorite, just because you can jump into the admin right now and experience that. It's a lot cleaner typeface and user experience. Things like managing bulk data is a lot easier now. We know that was a big pain point for a lot of merchants not that long ago. So the fact that we're addressing more of those quality of life things are really big in my mind. Flex sections is a really good one too. If you're kind of a bit more hands off when it comes to development work, as I am, you can go away and experiment with flex sections, which is a way we're essentially giving merchants greater control over the look and feel of their pages, the structure of their pages, and you can essentially now easily customize a page without fear that you're going to break something. And the great thing there is that a lot of developers can kind of build the guardrails around that to go, okay, this is what you can change on a page, and this is what you want to stay away from touching. So there's kind of those little pieces that I think, for me, kind of boil to the surface and go, oh, that's a really cool little upgrade there. Obviously you've got your big heavy hitters and big announcements, but I think throughout the 100 announcements that were included, there's plenty to chew on. We'll be speaking about this for a couple of weeks, I reckon, and then going away and implementing it, and then coming back with ways we've taken it even further than what we think we can. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's it. I guess everyone's still trying to unpack it all and really try and find where the golden nuggets of it are. And I no doubt we'll go away and we'll start implementing some of this. We'll find where things work amazingly and where there's certain limitations that we might want to see improvements made to in the future and then possibly in the next edition. So yeah, it's one of those things we catch up again in 6 months' time, and we'll definitely know what's where the value is and where there's potentially some limitations and stuff that no doubt Shopify will fix in the future.
100%. And I feel like, some things are still coming down down the road. I think, it's not all going to be immediately available, but a lot of the, key features that we've announced, they will have, pretty clear timeframes around them and early access sign up. So if you are keen to adopt that, I encourage you sign up sooner rather than later so you can get that access before it kind of goes out into general availability. And then any questions, please feel free to drop us a line, hit our team up, whether it's our sales team or merchant success teams and support. All of them are on hand ready to support you guys. And obviously go to the experts as well. Go to Simon and Marty and the team and have a chat to those guys about how you can adopt some more of these features into your site and your commerce experience. So yeah, I'm can't wait. I'm looking forward to seeing how brands use all of these updates in different ways.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, we haven't had any other questions come through, so I reckon we might wrap it up here. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us today, and hopefully we're able to bring some good knowledge to those that have been able to jump on the call today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Simon, and hope everyone enjoyed. And yeah, have a good rest of the afternoon.